I'm still uncomfortable talking about it. The risk was real. And when you think about it, you're like, oh my gosh, what was he thinking at that time to do that?
This march will not continue.
The time was March of 1965, and the world was watching Selma, Alabama, as what's now known as Bloody Sunday unfolded. Miles down Highway 80 in Lowndes County, Cheryl Gardner Davis's dad was preparing to host these men and women during their march to the state capitol for voting rights.
It took a lot of courage for them to do that.
The marchers only stopped at 3 homes along that 54-mile route. First, the David Hall home, followed by the Rosie Steele home, and then Cheryl's house, something the then 4-year-old recalls quite well.
I remember there were National Guard people everywhere, and I remember 2 huge tents on one side of the property. On the left side, there was another large tent on the right. Helicopters flying over. I remember the lights from the helicopter shining to make sure that no one was trying to interfere, that there was no harm.
And security was a concern before the marchers arrived and even after they left.
My father was threatened. He was offered bribes. When they did a sweep of the property before the marchers came, they found a neighbor farmer who had a high-power rifle pointed in the direction, waiting on my father to go around to check on his cows to kill him.
When the marchers left the Gardner family farm and headed east toward Montgomery, Cheryl says there was no real mention at home of what had happened or why it was significant. In fact, it wasn't until years later that she realized the role her family played offering up their property as Campsite 3 to the men and women marching for voting rights.
I didn't understand it until I was 6th grade, and we were talking about it in school. And my teacher said, well, Cheryl, you should know about this. And I'm thinking, why should I know about it? And I did ask her, why should I know about it? And she said, ask your mother.
That night, her mom showed her the Jet magazine about the march, something Cheryl still has today. She also has her mom's handwritten journal.
In closing, I think of Bloody Sunday as a lesson taught,
with details and reflections from the history they lived.
It's now time to share the story, to come out of our comfort zone and to share the story to generations, to the next generation, because people don't know. They don't know what happened.
A preservation mission that Philip Howard, a volunteer with the Conservation Fund, was quick to get behind.
As a parent, when you want to show your child what courage looks like, what bravery looks like, oftentimes people look at sports athletes and musicians. Think about what these people did.
All 3 campsites were recently listed as one of America's 11 most endangered historic places, a designation that may help keep their stories and place in history alive.
I don't think it's a stretch to say that if it were not for these families, if it were not for the campsites, the march may not have even taken place. That's how hugely significant they are.
A significance that brought these women and their families together this past March on the 56th anniversary of the Selma to Montgomery March. Hard to imagine, but after all these years, this gathering at the Edmund Pettus Bridge was the first time they had all met. A shared history Cheryl knows must be preserved and passed on to future generations.
Very important that people remember, that people understand the sacrifices that were made by ordinary people in order for us to have this right to vote.
Philip tells me the family envisioned their homes and properties along Highway 80 as a place to learn and to share that pivotal piece of American history. He says he isn't quite sure how it's all going to come together, but he believes this work will be done by the 60th anniversary of the Selma to Montgomery March, and that happens in March of 2025. I'm Ian Wright, WVTM 13 News.